Do not be alone right now. Gather together. Gathering together grows courage in ourselves and in others who see the numbers swelling. It is a small thing, but right now it is an important thing. Great sources of wisdom remind us just because you cannot stem the tide of all hate, it is still right to do the thing you can do. And these things add up. Your one thing, and my one thing, and his one thing, and their one thing, and your one thing, and her one thing. Together, it becomes a big thing. Do not be alone right now. Any liberation, all liberation, is collective liberation. My freedom is bound with yours, and yours with mine, inextricably. Let us speak these words together as we light the chalice. We kindle this flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
Well, good morning to all of you gathered in the sanctuary and to those of you who are streaming online. My name is Betsy Ferries, and I'm one of the worship associates for the service. I am the worship associate for the service this morning. You must excuse my hoarse voice. I was cheering very loudly at the UVM men's basketball game last night, and it was a hometown victorious nail-biter. Striving to be a radically welcoming congregation, we're one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, genders, and cultural identities. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. We welcome all who are welcoming. If this is your first or second time with us, a very special welcome to you. We hope you experience connection and compassion and a feeling of coming home. We invite you to wave your hand, letting us see you and letting those seated near you welcome you to today's welcome service. I see you. Thank you. Our welcome ambassadors for this Sunday are Marilyn Brill, Susan Ogden, and Susan Warner Mills. Could you raise your hand or stand so people can see you? There you are. They'll be at the coffee hour right after the service downstairs. They are interested in meeting you and answering any questions you might have. In addition, there's a card in each pew, and you're encouraged to fill it out and put it in the offertory basket or hand it to one of us. And one final way to connect is by going to our website, uusociety.org, and reaching out to us. Our order of service can be accessed by opening the gray hymnal in your pew and scan the URL code on the inside front cover. This morning's service holds familiar elements and ones that have been shaped by the need to respond to the recent events in our community. We will, as usual, have a time for all ages before we sing the children, volunteers, and staff to faith development. We will be singing a bit more than usual during this service. Our spiritual practices include our stone ritual, usually include that, have been adapted to address today heartbreak, healing, and hope. Specific questions that you may have about this week's events will be largely reserved to the congregational conversation that will be held here in the sanctuary. We hope you'll attend. It will begin at 11:45, and you can attend in person or via the Zoom link that was sent out by email this morning. In between this service and this congregational conversation, there will be a coffee hour downstairs, and I hear there's going to be a very special mystery treat. Childcare will be provided from 11:30 to 1 to make sure that parents of young children can participate if you so choose. During the coffee hour, board members will be circulating to collect your questions written on index cards so that our hour-long conversation can be as thoughtful as possible. Folks attending via Zoom are invited to add their questions in the chat. Friends, whatever it took for you to get here, wherever you've come from, wherever you are, whatever burdens and joys you're carrying, your whole self is welcome here. Come, let us worship together.
And come, let us sing together. I'm James Stewart, the music director here at the First UU Society. I invite you to stand in body or spirit as we sing together hymn number 1015. It's in the teal hymnal that looks like this. We have the words on the overhead as well, and some of the words have been changed to make it even more inclusive. Please sing with us, I Know I Can Go On. Though days be dark with storm and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sorrow heals my soul, and burdens make me strong. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My symphony in my heart, my cousin in my song. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. So kindred, take my hand, and my friend, sing my song. When hope awaits at every turn, I know we can go on. Thank you so so much for singing with us. Please be seated.
And at this time, I would like to invite forward any children interested in hearing a story for all ages, children at heart included. Scoot on forward to make room for everyone. Have any of you ever thought about the difference between a glove and a mitten? What are some of the differences?
So gloves normally, like, as you can see right here, they let you use your hand, they're just warm, where mittens are more snowproof, and they don't let the cold in, and you can't go like that, but you can go like that.
So fingers are more flexible. You can do lots of things in a glove because your fingers are independent. And in a mitten, they're all together. They might be more snow-proof. At least this one sure is. I'd rather be in the snow in this mitten than this glove. I didn't have very similar looking gloves and mittens, turned out. So mittens and gloves have different advantages. Any thoughts on which one might be warmer? Do you think this glove with all these separate little spots for each finger wrapped in fabric, or all the fingers bunched together? Why don't we vote? If you think a glove is warmer, raise your hand. If you think a mitten is warmer, raise your hand. Oh my gosh, so many people in favor of mittens here today. So while the glove may help us functionally do things that we need our fingers for, a mitten keeps all those fingers together, and each finger is warm, and the warmth of each finger helps keep the other fingers warm. Sometimes I think that being a part of a religious community is a little bit like being in a mitten. We're all a part of the same community together, and the warmth of our spirits, the warmth that we can offer to each other, can be something that can help us stay together. And that sometimes the world is cold and lonely and hard, and being together, like in the mitten, can be helpful. Someone once told me that we should never worry alone. And I think that actually extends for being excited. We should never be excited alone because it's way more fun to do that with other people. And when we're sad, I like to be, there's that saying, misery loves company. I like to be with other people when I'm feeling sad. So whatever the occasion, it's nice to be with other people. So mittens teach us two lessons. One is that each of us is really important and that we can make a difference for each other because each finger is warm, right? And it's the warmth of each finger that makes the other fingers warm. And that being together is a really wonderful and warm thing. So at this time, I'd like to invite the congregation to join in singing our children out to their groups. And thank you.
Repeat after me. As you journey, may you know, love and hope go with you, learn and grow, all together. As you journey, learn and grow, learn and grow.
Good morning. My name is Daryl Liacano. It's quite a last name. I am happily a new member of this community, this society, and very, very honored to be. And in light of everything that's happened here in the past week, I wanted to share this song this morning called People of Hope, and hope that it will be a song of hope and unity for us. And I want to teach you the chorus real quick, and you'll get it as we go. And then I'm going to actually ask you to rise if you are able in body or spirit, and sing along whenever you can. It's called People of Hope, and there they are. The refrain goes like this. This mortar and stone, these windows and walls, love's earthly home, heeding the call, it's bread for the journey, oil for the flame, for people of love, people of hope, people of change. Let's just sing that last part again. For people of love, people of hope, people of change. Awesome. And when we get to the end, we're going to sing that phrase with some other words as well. So if you would, rise in body or spirit. Here we go. It's hard to believe in the sun in the dark of the night, and it's hard to believe in the stars in the bright morning light. Well, we all need a place we can go to learn what is real, to ponder the depths of the soul where truth is revealed. Oh, this is our place. This is our home. Working and seeking, we're never alone. In this mortar and stone, these windows and walls, love's earthly home, heeding the call, it's bread for the journey, oil for the flame, for people of love, people of hope, people of change. It's hard to believe there is peace when war rages on, and it's hard to believe there is love in hate's raging throng. But for every brave soldier, a peacemaker takes her own stand. And for every soul long turned away, there waits a new hand. Oh, let it be you. Let it be me. Here in love's dwelling, we learn to believe in this mortar and stone, these windows and walls, love's earthly home, heeding the call, it's bread for the journey, oil for the flame, for people of love, people of hope, people of change. When a place is what welcomes you in, you build it, you change it, so the promise of love can begin here in this room. Oh, here in these halls, hearts open wide, welcoming all in this mortar and stone, these windows and walls, love's earthly home, heeding a call. It's bread for the journey, oil for the flame, for people of love, people of hope, people of change. We're people of love, people of hope, people of change. We're living out love, living out hope, living out change. Oh, sing out for love, sing out for hope, sing out for change. Now I believe in the sun in the dark of the night.
I had told our tech team that I might use the Madonna mic, but I'm not, so this is me telling them that I'm not. Before I start with the poem that I want to start with, I want to share with you that there's going to be a lot of words. I mean, there's a lot of music, but there's going to be a lot of words today. That's all I could come and bring to you. But also, if you've seen me driving in town, and I'm doing this, it's because I'm listening to my Rage playlist. And I don't know if you have a Rage playlist, but I recommend it highly. I want to start with a poem by the Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Lynn Unger. It's called Duty. She wrote it just a few weeks ago. The maple leaves that turn to flame are burning down to embers. Time to bank the fires of the year. I know you feel darkness closing in, but what makes you think that it's your problem to solve? Stop trying to tie the leaves back to branches. Answer the questions that are yours to ask. Who is my neighbor? Make the things that are yours to make. Split peas or lentils for the soup. When the old rabbi talked about tikkun olam, your duty to repair the world, he made it clear the only way creation is restored is through inviting the tiniest shards to find their way back home to a wholeness we must keep imagining. I want to invite to take up residence in your heart, just one of those lines, though any one of them might do. So I want to invite to take up residence in your heart this line. Stop trying to tie leaves back to their branches. Just over a week ago, we came to know the horrific news of the shooting of Tassin Ali Ahmad, Hisham Awartani, and Kinan Ali Ahmad here in Burlington. We cannot undo this. We cannot tie those leaves back to those branches. And 6 days ago, we learned that the suspected shooter was someone who had spent time this summer and this fall here as part of our congregation. And this is shocking. Dear ones, we are in shock. And though we are not at the center of this act of violence and its damage, We are very much in its wake. We must not fool ourselves into thinking otherwise, and we must recognize that much was damaged when that gun was fired. And this includes how we make sense of the world. Part of that shock looks like traveling to what I call the land of what if. For some, the land of what if is filled with heightened worries about whether we are safe gathering here in this building. What if he had brought that violence here? And for others, the land of what if is filled with self-doubt, sometimes mixed with blame. What if I could have foreseen? What if I could have stopped it? We humans have this longing, this capacity, this drive to try and make sense of things, and sometimes we'd rather be wrong than uncertain. We have neighbors and friends who are struggling how this act of violence, which looks very much like a hate crime, could happen in this liberal, welcoming bastion. And some of us here in this room and online are struggling with that too. In that way, we are not traveling in the land of what if, but the country of how could this have happened? We have our own travels in that country. How could it be that a Unitarian Universalist perpetrated this violence? In fact, I've already received an email saying they couldn't have truly been Unitarian if they did it. And I understand that longing, right, for that clarity. And I think it's dangerous. And we must be very cautious about pronouncements like that. We are human, and we can fall prey to exceptionalism. Unitarian Universalists were really good at exceptionalism, and we want to believe our principles and our values are immunization enough to even from being human, that we might have all of humanity within us, the good and the evil. And I say that not knowing if I have a theology of whether evil exists. And of course, closer to home, we have this question of how someone known to our congregation, someone who volunteered in one of our most vibrant, caring ministries, someone who sat in these pews, how could someone within, not wider Unitarian Universalism, somebody else's problem, but how could this happen from someone among us? And these are very hard questions that if we allow them to bubble up, and there are no sure answers, certainly not this so soon, as we are still in shock. We are still in the territory of trauma, moving towards reckoning, but not there. And when there are no sure answers, when the uncertainty is what is on offer, we loved and lovable yet flawed humans, because it is easier, right, than not knowing, we try for certainty, which can sometimes look like blame, self-blame, other blame. We want to tie those leaves back onto the tree rather than waiting for the cycle of growth and healing. There is another way I think we need to avoid making meaning in the midst of these horrific circumstances. And I shared this with one of the groups I met with this week, and that is for us to stay away from trying to explain this horrific act of violence as stemming from mental illness. And I say this for several reasons. One is there are many of us in this room who experience mental illness. You don't have to raise your hands. We know us. And so we know that mental illness does not automatically lead to violence. So we must be careful. But there's another reason we, as a congregation in one of the whitest states, a congregation that is predominantly white, must stay away from the explanation of mental illness, even if as we hold it as a possibility. Because too often, when violence is perpetrated by people of color, we hear the words terrorist and we hear the words thug. And when it is a white person, a white man who perpetrates violence, we hear mental illness. And if we are truly committed to the eighth principle, to dismantling systems of oppression, especially racism within ourselves and in our institutions, we, as a predominantly white congregation, must be very careful about how we lean on that explanation. I invite you to consider this strongly. There is so much that is unknown. There is so much that emerges day by day, and it's overwhelming, especially as we are trying to figure out which questions are ours to answer. As we recognize that we are in shock, that there is a traumatic impact for us in this act of violence, we are asked to slow down. And I don't know about you, but I did not slow down this week. Although I was glad for the stories of some of you who did. We must practice growing our capacity to tolerate not knowing, recognizing that there will come a time when we are not in shock and can begin to make sense, begin to find meaning, begin to right-size our fear or guilt or doubt or confusion or anger that has likely taken up residence in us, and I will own has taken up residence in me. With that in mind, I want to end this part of my message. I'll be back later in the program. With these words from the late 19th century German poet Rainer Maria Rilke. You may be familiar with them. I have them on my wall. Be patient with all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek answers which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. So live the questions now, and perhaps we will then gradually, without even noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. As we do, let this be a way that we connect both to our moral conscience as individuals and our collective moral compass as a community.
Invite you to stand in body or spirit as we sing together hymn number 123, 123, Spirit of Life.
Spirit
Please be seated.
Thank you, Reverend Karen. Lots to think about. Spiritual practices come in many forms within our Sunday service. Generosity, spoken meditation, stillness and music, creating a space for our joys, our sorrows, our gratitude. In this portion of our Sunday service, each of us will have the opportunity to enter into those communal practices to which you are drawn. For those of you who are attending online, or those of you who are in the sanctuary who want to remain seated, we invite you to lean into the musical meditation, an opportunity for stillness and centering as it makes sense to you. As a justice-seeking spiritual community, our generosity practice includes sharing half of the offering each Sunday. Our offering this week will be shared with a fund set up to benefit the 3 Palestinian college students, Tashin Ali Ahmad, Tinin Abdalhamid, and Hisham Awartani, who were shot last week. This fund is helping with medical bills as well as travel expenses for their family to come be with them. We've researched to ensure that this fund we are giving to is one that's authentic, and we feel confident the funds will go to whom we intend them.
Dear ones, let us join together in prayer and meditation. Let us quiet our minds, open our hearts, and release our fears to the love that surrounds, embraces, and is always available. Spirit of life and love, we offer gratitude to be breathing in this moment. Our bodies, some ragged, some energized, brought us to this place that we might be together, that we might be more than the sum of our parts, that we might slow down and touch that which is greater than any one of us. Spirit of life and love, we offer our heartbreak, the hurt of this world, its unanswered promises, its questions that prick at our heart, that make us heavy with our own and the world's suffering. Heavier still is when we fail to name this heartbreak, fail to notice it, and let it not be known. So let us hold in our circle of care those whose heartbreak does not make the headlines, those facing a frightening diagnosis, or whose furried loved ones die much too soon, those who have unexpectedly or too soon lost a human beloved, and those who have cause for serious worry for their child, or their parent, or their sibling, or their beloved. As we gather today, let us give voice to this heartbreak, this sadness, and mourn it in our own hearts with others by our side. Spirit of life and love, we want to be a part of the stream that generates healing. We raise our voices that the 3 young men shot in our community just over a week ago know healing of body, healing of mind, healing of spirit, and ultimately healing a sense of trust and safety, though we know it will be a very long road. We give thanks to all who are working towards that healing and towards the return of trust and a possible sense of safety, those at the UVM Medical Center, including all the medical providers of so many different levels and all who keep that institution thrumming and humming. Local law enforcement whose efforts mean that one person with too many guns is not a threat to our community at this time. Let us recognize that in the midst of the happenings this past week, we have our own healing to do as individuals and as a congregation. Let us not rush that process. Let us not engage in spiritual bypassing that avoids the hard parts, that seeks easy answers and false promises. Let us do what is ours to support the healing of all who need it. And on this day, the healing especially of Tassin, of Kinan, of Hisham, and their families, and the whole Vermont Palestinian community, and all the neighbors and friends in the North Prospect space, and all of those who speak Arabic and yet now are afraid to do so. Spirit of life and love, we seek to touch that hope that is sometimes elusive, particularly in hard times, particularly in times when we are struggling. Let us make ourselves available even for small moments of delight, made of the kind of joy that never leaves the world, not made of happiness that's built on happenstance, but is of a joy that is deeper and longer lasting than any single moment. We cannot always feel it, but we must say it is there, always around us and in us. May we have good companions that help us know it, touch it. Let us keep the message of today's anthem in our hearts, reminding us to be a people of hope, leaning on each other when we cannot generate it ourselves, showing up in the public square for both comfort and courage. I invite us all now to spend some moments of shared stillness together until the chime rings again, connecting with the yearning within our own hearts. Amen.
This morning, our stone ritual takes on a different form. I'll describe it to you so you can get a sense of what's possible for you if you are here in person. Our apologies to those attending online who will not be able to participate. There are 3 ritual stations at the top of each of these aisles. On each table are 3 invitations to specific ritual acts. There's a well of heartbreak, to which we invite you to add a single stone from the bowl next to it to mark whatever heartbreak is visiting you at this time. There is a fount of hope, to which we invite you to add one of the colorful glass jewel stones that lay on the table beside it. As you do so, this is a gesture that even in the midst of heartbreak and heartache, we choose to be a people of hope. The water into which you cast that spark of hope contains some of our homegrown holy water collected at our watering gathering in September. Also on the ritual table, there is a prayer shawl for healing, on which we invite you to lay your hands and offer a silent blessing for healing. This congregation has a long history of this ministry, congregants knitting shawls that are blessed sometimes by the whole congregation. These are then given in times of need or joy. In this case, it's our hope that there will come a time when these prayer shawls, blessed by all of us here, are welcome gifts to either Tashin, Kenan, or Hisham, and or their families. Just to repeat, on each of the 3 tables in front before me, there are 3 opportunities to silently share your thoughts and feelings. For those who are donating to our weekly offering, which, as I noted before, benefits these 3 young men and their families. The offering basket is at the back of the sanctuary today. And now, as we enter into this ritual, let us hold that which has been spoken and that which remains unspoken gently.
I have it. So, because this is a collective effort, and because papers get lost at the darndest times, join us, please, in saying these words to dedicate our offering. You'll see them up there. With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth,
and act for justice.
So, it's time for my second message here. And I am feeling thirsty. I'm also feeling really well companioned. I'm so glad to be here with you. And you. And you. As ever, we look to our principles and values to help us in easy times and in hard. And friends, indeed, this is a hard time. And one that will not go away with the next news cycle. For now and for some time to come, this is ours to reckon with. When that gun was fired, we became bound with those 3 young men whose bodies were forever changed by this violent and hateful act. We are now bound to Tahsin Ali Ahmad. We are now bound to Hisham Awartani. We are now bound to Kenan Abdul Hamid. This past Wednesday, our congregation hosted a community vigil, an interfaith vigil on Wednesday evening. Some of you were there. We sang, we lit candles. There were 100, 120, 150 people. And behind the scenes, clergy from different houses of worship here in the downtown area were working to ensure that that space was safe enough for it to be an interfaith gathering, which is not easy in this time, given the divisions, particularly since October 7th. There has been a lot of shouting at each other. And so we made a decision that it would be a no poster zone, not even posters of love or peace. That this was an ask by one of our interfaith partners, and we honored it. And as is common in these days when creating a public event of this nature, we had boundary keepers, some from this congregation and some from First Congregational. And so when someone approached the vigil wanting to hand out a printed statement, there was a peaceful intervention. And our boundary keepers respectfully negotiated a compromise to not hand them out during the vigil, but to be able to do so at the end of it. I found out about this after the fact because James and I were busy up front. And those boundary keepers did the exact right thing. And it turned out to be complicated. Because here's the complication. Here's the confounding, poignant thing. The statement written on those slips of paper, on this slip of paper, is from one of the victims of the shooting, from Hisham Awartani. He wrote it specifically for vigils that would be being held in his name, locally and afar, knowing that there were many happening, knowing that he, of course, could not be at them, knowing that people were gathering in his name. We are bound to Tahsin. We are bound to Kenan. We are bound to Hisham. The fates have flung us together because it happened in Burlington, because the shooter identifies as Unitarian Universalist, because he attended this congregation, yes, less than a few months and stopped a month or more ago, but still, we are bound to Tassin, we are bound to Kinan, we are bound to Hisham. And so I think it is important that in this space, which is our space, not an interfaith space, but yes, one that is home to a diversity of theologies, a diversity of cultural and religious identities, and a diversity of political opinions when it comes to Israel-Palestine, that we read aloud the statement here. It may not reflect your views or mine, but that is irrelevant. This bond that we now has requires that we give voice to his voice. And so I read his words. This hideous crime did not happen in a vacuum. It's important to recognize that this is part of a larger story. As much as I appreciate the love every single one of you here today, I am one casualty in this wider conflict. Had I been shot in the West Bank where I grew up, the medical services that saved my life here would likely have been withheld by the Israeli army. The soldier who shot me would go home and never be convicted. I understand that the pain is so much more real and immediate because many of you know me, but any attack like this is horrific, be it here or in Palestine. He continues, this is why when you say your wishes and light your candles, your mind should not be focused on me as an individual, but rather as a proud member of a people being oppressed. The fates have flung us together, and it's something we must take seriously. It is an invitation. Is it a demand? Frankly, I'm not sure. Can we ignore it? Is it real if we only if we agree to it? I don't think so. Does it exist only if those 3 young men acknowledge it? I'm not sure about that either. I think that we are bound together in ways that are inexplicable and will reveal themselves over time. Sometimes only if we're willing to look and see them, but sometimes I think it's going to hit us over the head. We are bound together in ways that we do not yet know and in ways that do not yet exist, that might exist depending on the choices we make. Choices like dedicating this morning's Share the Plate to that fund that will benefit them and their families. Perhaps through the prayer shawls, should we find a way to present them in relationship without doing harm? I have worried about that and want to be very, very thoughtful about how how to do that. It makes sense that in the face of senseless violence, we will be longing ourselves for safety and wanting concrete information about how to protect ourselves. It makes sense that we are longing to come up with ways in which we can guarantee the safety of our children, of our loved ones, of ourselves. It is understandable that some of us are worried about the risk of gathering, so much so that we're wondering whether it is worth it to come here. That live stream is looking really good right now to some of us. We are not the first, nor are we the last to ask these questions in the wake of a violent episode, in the wake of hate-motivated violence. Perhaps you heard this too, but the most poignant thing I have heard was spoken by both the mother and the uncle of one of the victims, where they reflected on the fact that they were supposed to be safe here since they weren't safe on the West Bank. When I notice within myself that longing for safety, for guarantee that the world actually cannot grant, my mind goes to a quote from Helen Keller. It's actually on a very big painting I made ages ago that hangs in our garage. And it says this: "Security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of man as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure." I do not want to downplay the fear that is at the heart of our questions, but neither do I want to give over to fear. Neither do I want fear to become the only voice I listen to, or you listen to, or we listen to as we make decisions about our communal life and who we are called to be in the world. I am committing myself to recognize the rise of fear within me, not letting it reside here, not letting it guide me. And I want to ask the same of you. Of you. And you. And you. Of all of us. I am asking this of us as a community partner in our local community, and as a religious institution. While we can let fear inform us, we cannot and must not let it lead us. We must reckon with what it is to live in a world where there is always risk. And our Unitarian Universalist principles and values are better guides than fear. When we experience tragedy or loss, personal confusion, or societal chaos, we come together to make meaning and to experience comfort. It is what we are doing this morning. And since we are a people who hold in high esteem being in covenant with each other, we do this meaning making while paying attention to how we treat each other, to how we honor each other's inherent worth and dignity, how we lovingly hold each other accountable, how we are willing to listen, if not to agree, then at least to understand, how we want to live into our best selves, living into our principles, living into our values. We in this room, we in this Burlington community have been propelled into a territory of trauma and meaning making. And this territory can provoke all sorts of unpleasant behavior. Maybe you've already seen this at home. Short tempers, crying jags, feelings of overwhelm, aggressive language coming out of our mouths even though we don't mean it, blame and resentment, conflict, more. In the next weeks and months, let us commit to recognizing that if this arises, this may well be part of our trauma territory. And let us grant each other and ourselves abundant grace. We are going to need it. And here is the unbidden gift of that territory. Depending on how we engage, how we make meaning, growth and perhaps even transformation happens here. Deepening happens here. This is when the shit gets real. When we face the pain, when we do not seek or accept simple answers, transformation is only possible, not promised, but it is possible to those who are willing to make that risk. So in addition to not letting fear guide us, I want to ask us, while we are in this territory of trauma and meaning making, to stay connected, to keep coming back, even when you think it's not worth it, even when we're exhausted, even when we hear that inner voice that says, I'll go next week. We close with this poem written ages ago by your minister. It's titled Inexplicable. How we rise each morning instead of burying our heads under bed covers, sewing them shut. Why we keep welcoming babies with bone-deep joy to this sordid world. How we fill burlap sacks with grit and gratitude, our hands shredded as we drag one over the other. How we refuse the daily pull towards greedy dark, keeping at least one toe and some of us whole torso in the light. Inexplicable. It's what makes a poem worth writing, worth reading, worth flooding the world with redundant, flawed attempts at explanation. It's just the way. There is no other way. Stumbling every time, practice or no. Just part of the bargain, the unavoidable, intractable, inexplicable bargain. So be it. See to it. Amen.
I invite you to join me in this closing song together, if you'll rise in body or spirit, and we'll sing, There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all, and I rest in this love. We'll sing I a couple of times, and then we'll make it plural and sing we. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. Let's sing that again. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. Let's make that plural. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. Just our voices singing plural. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. That last line one more time. We rest in this love. Thank you. Please be seated.
Please join me in the chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this flame but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again.
Before the benediction, just a reminder, we have made sure that there is time for fellowship because we need fellowship. So there is coffee hour, and as Betsy mentioned earlier, there is a mysterious and I think delightful treat awaiting you. So I have been inferred or told or something. And then 11:45 back here in this room. We're going to start on time. We're not going to go over an hour because our bodies and our minds cannot handle more than that. Even if we don't, and we won't get everything done, but we will get a start, okay? If you think you know it, because I've been here 4 years and I say it every Sunday, I hope you will join me in saying this benediction. I didn't think about that ahead of time, so the words are not going to be up there to help you. May you know the blessing you already are. May you sense the blessing you yet can be. And may we go out and be a blessing in the world.